The warning signs were everywhere, but Tombstone had grown accustomed to ignoring them. Tension was not an anomaly in the town. It was the background noise of daily life. Men carried pistols openly. Threats were exchanged casually, often without consequence. Political arguments spilled out of saloons and into courtrooms, then back again. The town survived not because it was peaceful, but because it had learned how to keep violence contained. Gunfire was different. Gunfire meant that containment had failed. By the end of 1880, Tombstone was already past the point of balance. The forces pulling it apart were no longer subtle, and they were no longer equal. They ran through elections, through law enforcement, through newspapers, and through the fragile illusion that justice in the Arizona Territory operated without bias. The breaking point began with a vote. The Pima County Sheriff's election should have been routine. Bob Paul entered the race with visible support, clear momentum, and confidence backed by early vote counts. Tombstone's business community favored him. Many lawmen expected his victory. When initial precincts reported, the numbers reflected exactly that expectation. Then the delays started. Ballots arrived days late from distant ranching regions dominated by cowboy factions that openly opposed Tombstone's merchants and urban lawmen. The paperwork was sloppy. Chain of custody was questionable. In several precincts, vote totals exceeded the number of registered voters. One district with fewer than a dozen eligible voters somehow produced more than 100 ballots. The results flipped. Paul protested. Others joined him. Accusations of fraud were openly discussed, but the distance and disorder of territorial politics protected the outcome. No investigation went anywhere. No one with authority pushed the issue far enough to matter. The man who benefited most from the reversal did not pretend otherwise. Johnny Behan emerged strengthened. Shortly after the election, Behan was appointed deputy sheriff over the eastern half of Pima County. It was not a coincidence. That territory included the very region Wyatt Earp had quietly positioned himself to oversee. Wyatt had cultivated relationships carefully, understanding that legitimacy in a frontier town did not come from force alone. It came from recognition. Behan had bypassed that process entirely. The appointment sent a clear message. Authority in southern Arizona did not belong to whoever enforced the law best. It belonged to whoever controlled the margins. The remote precincts, the delayed ballots, the ambiguous jurisdictions. Wyatt understood the implications immediately. In early 1881, the legislature carved Cochise County out of Pima County and placed its seat directly in Tombstone. It was a move loaded with consequence. A new county meant fresh elections, a new sheriff's office, and most importantly, control over tax commissions worth tens of thousands of dollars annually. The office would shape the town's future. Both Wyatt Earp and Johnny Behan wanted it. Behan moved first. He approached Wyatt privately with a calculated offer. If Wyatt stepped aside and supported his candidacy, Behan would appoint him undersheriff. It was presented as a partnership. In reality, it was a delay tactic. Wyatt accepted. When Behan won the election, he appointed someone else. The choice was deliberate. A newspaperman, a known ally of the cowboy faction, someone whose loyalty was not in question. The betrayal was public, unmistakable, and humiliating. From that moment on, any remaining trust between Behan and the Earps disintegrated. Law enforcement in Tombstone no longer appeared compromised. It appeared openly adversarial. Violence soon followed politics. In March of 1881, a stagecoach carrying silver bullion was ambushed outside Contention City. The robbery failed, but the consequences did not. The driver was killed instantly. A passenger died moments later. Bob Paul, still entangled in the aftermath of election fraud, survived only by chance. The attackers fled without the silver. Virgil Earp, now serving as Tombstone's town marshal, organized a posse immediately. Wyatt joined. Morgan rode alongside them. Wells Fargo agents participated, determined to recover both reputation and cargo. Johnny Behan joined briefly, careful to be seen, careful not to commit. The pursuit lasted more than 2 weeks. Men rode until their horses collapsed. Water was rationed to mouthfuls. Fear followed them through canyons and scrubland, where the land itself seemed to conspire against endurance. Several times the posse nearly gave up. Eventually, a suspect was deceived into confessing. He named 3 men tied directly to cowboy circles. When the prisoner reached Tombstone, He walked out of jail through an unlocked door. No one believed it was accidental. The Earps returned exhausted, unpaid, and convinced that the law itself was being undermined from within. Wells Fargo reimbursed their expenses. Behan submitted his own bill and refused to reimburse theirs. Professional courtesy ended. Wyatt made one last attempt to prevent escalation. He approached Ike Clanton privately, offering reward money in exchange for information on the stage robbers. Ike listened carefully, then learned the suspects were already dead. Word spread quickly. Ike Clanton was soon whispered about as a man who had considered betraying his own. In a culture where reputation mattered more than truth, the rumor alone was enough. Ike blamed Wyatt. He blamed Doc Holliday, and he drank harder. By summer, Tombstone was primed for disaster. Arrests collapsed under weak testimony. Judges dismissed charges. Newspapers inflamed every confrontation. Every meeting between opposing factions carried the unspoken threat of violence. October removed the last restraints. On the night of October 25th, Ike Clanton and Tom McClory rode into Tombstone to sell beef. They drank heavily. Ike crossed paths with Doc Holliday almost immediately. Accusations followed. Insults sharpened. The argument escalated until Virgil Earp intervened and warned Ike that he would spend the night in jail if he did not calm down. Ike ignored him. By morning, Ike was still awake, still drinking, still armed, still making threats. City ordinance forbade carrying weapons inside town. Virgil and Morgan confronted him on the street and disarmed him. Ike resisted. They knocked him down. Wyatt stayed with the battered cattlemen while Virgil went to find a judge. Ike was fined and ordered to retrieve his weapons later. It should have ended there. It didn't. Tom McClory was confronted next. Wyatt spotted a pistol and struck him twice, dropping him in the street. Whether Tom had been armed beforehand or picked up the weapon afterward would be debated forever. What mattered was perception. The McClorys believed the Earps intended to humiliate them publicly. Billy Clanton and Frank McClory rode into town shortly after. They were armed, they were angry, they were fully briefed. They stopped briefly, gathered the story, and moved toward the narrow vacant lot behind the OK Corral. Rumors spread instantly. The cowboys were armed. They were threatening to kill the Earps. Johnny Behan went to intercept them. He later claimed he disarmed the group. He hadn't. At approximately 2:30 p.m., Virgil Earp gathered Wyatt, Morgan, and Doc Holliday and walked down Fremont Street toward the vacant lot beside Fly's boarding house. The walk was deliberate. Everyone in Tombstone knew where they were going. No one stepped aside. No one tried to stop it. The distance closed. Virgil called for the men to raise their hands. Someone moved. Black powder erased the sky. The first shots came so close together that witnesses would argue about them for decades. Frank and Billy Clanton reached for their guns. Wyatt fired. Morgan fired. Doc stepped forward with a shotgun. Tom McClory took the blast at point-blank range. He staggered toward the corner of Fremont in third and collapsed, dead. Ike Clanton ran. Billy Clanton, shot in the wrist, fired left-handed. He kept shouting, kept shooting. Even as bullets tore into his chest and stomach, he refused to fall. Frank McClory crossed the street firing, trying to bring a rifle into play. A bullet struck him in the head. He dropped instantly. The gunfight lasted less than 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 3 men were dead. Virgil was wounded. Morgan was gravely injured. Doc was grazed. Wyatt stood untouched. The silence afterward was heavier than the gunfire, but the violence had not ended. It had only transformed. Within hours, arrest warrants were issued. The Earps and Doc Holliday were charged with murder. Johnny Behan moved quickly, eager to reclaim authority and reshape public perception. The men surrendered voluntarily, confident the law would finally be forced to choose a side. The preliminary hearing dragged on for weeks. Witness testimony fractured along political lines. Accounts contradicted each other. Newspapers framed the event as either cold-blooded murder or necessary law enforcement. Judge Wells Spicer ultimately ruled the shooting justified, stating the Earps had acted within their authority. Legally, they were cleared. Socially, they were isolated. Threats intensified. Businesses chose sides. Armed men followed the Earps through the streets. Tombstone no longer felt like a town. It felt like enemy territory. The gunfight had resolved nothing. It had merely made the divisions permanent. And while the bullets of October 26th ended 3 lives in under 30 seconds, the consequences would echo far longer, through vendettas, assassinations, and a legacy that would forever blur the line between law and violence in the American West.